I'm still going to have you come here and then you just have to stay in that box.
Okay, I will.
Good morning. Okay, let's do this. Oh, no. Okay, Cantor J. Oh, wait. Oh, got it. Not that I don't rely on you for all things Judaic, but all things technical is also a big help. So good morning. It's my pleasure to introduce our guests. And this is Anna Kislanski, and we're going to talk in a hot minute. She is the Chief Executive Officer of the Israel Movement for Reform and Progressive Judaism, IMPJ. She leads the largest and most diverse progressive Jewish organization in Israel with over 50 congregations, communities, and educational institutions. And since they're all Jewish, you know what that means. She has been working with IMPJ for over 13 years, starting as the Director of Congregations Department and then as the Chief Operating Officer. She has a master's degree in education and extensive experience in community development, nonprofit management, and volunteer engagement. She brings strategic vision and the ability to deal with complex situations. Her hope is to expand the impact and influence of IMPJ on Israeli society by promoting pluralism, social justice, and religious equality. And we certainly need that. As somebody who works with our Israeli shlichim, their ambassadors, and they come to camp, a lot of them have never been exposed to Reform Judaism. And I have a lot of the young women have never been called to the Torah. And it's really I'm always very excited to give them a bat mitzvah. After Anna speaks, David Bernstein will speak. And throughout all his years in Israel, he's been a volunteer activist in the Israel Reform and Progressive Movement as the chair of his congregation, Birkat Shalom at Kibbutz Gezer, where he knows my friend Gingy. That's the most important thing. And as chair of the National General Assembly of IMPJ. In 2014, David joined the senior professional team of IMPJ. In the World Zionist Organization, David has served in a variety of volunteer positions on behalf of Artseinu, the Federation of World Reform Zionist Movements. These positions include member of the Presidium and the WZO Budget Committee. And that budget committee is very important because that, it takes our money and gives it to reform causes. In June 2021, he was appointed to the executive of the World Zionist Organization and recently to the board of trustees of Keren HaYesod. He has an undergraduate degree in history and economics from Pitzer College and an MBA from UC Berkeley. And they live, he and his wife Nirit live in Moshav Satoria, an agricultural settlement near Rehovot in the Gezer Regional Council. So, with no further ado.
Thank you. Toda rabba, and thank you for the warm welcome. Can you hear me? Okay. So
I need you, yes.
Yeah.
You need that, perfect.
Okay. Boker Tov, everybody. We're not on behalf of myself and my colleague, David Bernstein. We're very excited to be here and to see you all. I know it's a work day and we're not taking for granted the fact that you came here to hear about us and about the work of the Israeli Reform Movement. I'm going to talk specifically about how our movement responded to the October 7th events and what's going on with our movement now. But before that, let me just start and lay out to you some of the things that our movement is involved in Israel, a little bit of background about our movement. And maybe even before that, I'll talk a little bit about myself, because through my story, you can really learn about the growth of our movement and how people have joined our movement. So you mentioned, Vanessa, you mentioned earlier the fact that the shlichim are not aware of Reform Judaism in Israel. They're not very much aware of egalitarian Judaism. And I was like many of these shlichim. I grew up, my family made Aliyah, immigrated from Russia during the early 1970s, right after the Yom Kippur War. I was 2 years old. The reason my parents left Soviet Russia was because they wanted to express their Jewish identity. You couldn't really do that in Russia. So they were lucky enough to get a permission to leave to Israel about 3 months after they applied. That was very, very unusual. Many of my family members stayed there for almost 20 more years until the year of 1990, when they were able to make Aliyah. So even though my parents were very Zionist, they were not, you were not allowed to practice Judaism in Soviet Russia, so they didn't know much. So I grew up in a very, very secular background. We were that secular that actually when we wanted to celebrate the holidays, it was me and my brothers who were already born in Israel. We came to my parents and said, well, this is the time to celebrate Hanukkah. Let's get Chanukiah and sufganiyot, the donuts. Or for the Passover Seder, my father, for the first time, had to learn how to read in Hebrew from the Haggadah in order to lead a Passover Seder for us. I knew, you learn in Israeli schools the Bible, you take matriculation tests, so I knew very well the Bible stories, all the weekly portions, but I never opened up a Siddur. I didn't know how to pray. And of course, I was not aware of egalitarian Judaism. In my mind, you were either secular in a very Israeli manner or Orthodox. So in my 20s, I was asked to perform a mifgash. I was working for an informal education organization called Melitz, the Institute for Jewish Zionist Education. And we were holding mifgashim, encounters between Israeli youth and North American Jewish youth. I was supposed to lead a mifgash between Niftyites and Israelis.
I just want to move this.
Yeah.
closer to you.
Okay,
There we go.
okay. Thank you.
Listen.
Right.
So people.
Yeah.
Oh, I can maybe hold it in my
Yeah, I
hand.
think that's what we're gonna do.
Hi, okay, much better. So I was asked, I was supposed to lead a mifgash between Nifty kids and Israeli youth. And my supervisor told me when they were supposed to meet on the beach at Kibbutz Nachsholim. My supervisor told me, well, you need to meet the American group, go and wait for them in the parking lot. When the bus pulls in, don't forget to greet the rabbi. So I was looking for the rabbi, and I couldn't identify the rabbi because he didn't look like an Orthodox rabbi. He looked like, you know, it was summer, he was wearing Bermuda shorts and sandals, and it was just looking like the other madrichim, which I could identify. So I said, wow, this is a rabbi. I was not aware of the fact that a rabbi was not an Orthodox rabbi. And then later they were singing, the kids after lunch were singing Birkat Hamazon, the prayer that you say after the meal. All the Americans were singing beautifully with the Hebrew words. I'm not sure they understood the words, but they sang beautifully. The Israelis, they didn't know. That was the first time that they heard the singing of Birkat Hamazon. That was the first time for me that I heard the singing for Birkat Hamazon. And I decided that I actually want to take this journey on and to learn about prayer and to be familiarized with the Siddur. And about a year later, me and my husband Arthur, who was then my boyfriend, we wanted to get married. We already knew that we didn't want to get married in an Orthodox setting. And we were looking for a rabbi to marry us. I was not even then, that was 1996, aware that Reform Judaism in Israel existed. I thought it was that cool rabbi with the Bermuda shorts in North America and that it only existed in North America. So actually the DJ that we hired to do the music for our wedding revealed the secret for us, that there is a Reformed Jewish community in Israel. And she said, well, you should go to Tel Aviv and you should meet with Rabbi Meir Azari, who then just started the Reformed congregation in Bet Daniel, which is now one of our largest congregations in Tel Aviv. And we went to Bet Daniel and we met with Meir, and we immediately liked him, and he eventually performed our chuppah on the shore of Caesarea, a beautiful Jewish chuppah. But then he said to us, you know, this will not be recognized by the state of Israel. So I recommend you go to Cyprus and get a civil marriage certificate there, because there are no civil marriage in Israel. So we did that because we wanted to be registered as a married couple by the state of Israel. Unfortunately, this is still the case in Israel. We have more and more Reform rabbis in Israel that perform egalitarian weddings. Thousands of egalitarian weddings are performed in Israel every year. You don't need to ask your DJ about Reform rabbis, because now we're very familiar, and the Israeli public is familiar with Reform Judaism, but it's still not recognized. What we have now is about 129 Reform rabbis that were ordained by HUC, the Jerusalem branch of the Hebrew Union College, and they're leading our movement. We have 54 congregations. We were, up until 2009, that was the year that I returned from being an emissary, a shlicha. I was a Jewish agency shlicha to the Union for Reform Judaism. I lived in Brooklyn with my family. That was between the years 2005 to 2009. When I returned to Israel, Rabbi Gilad Kariv, who's now a member of the Knesset and the former CEO, hired me to be the director of congregations in Israel. And he said to me, you know, we have a very important mission. If we want to meet the Israeli public where they are, we need to grow. We can't just continue being this small movement with congregations between Hadera and Gedera, meaning in the center of Israel. We have to spread out. So how do you do that? First of all, you don't say no. If a person would call me from, I don't know, Rosh Pina or Kiryat Shmona in the north, or someone from the south, and said, well, we want to have egalitarian services for Yom Kippur, this is when our congregations and our Israelis remember that they need to go to a shul, even those who are secular, then we say yes. And that's how we were able to establish 27 more congregations within a decade. That was a mission that I got from Gilad and from our board, and we were able to more than double the amount of Reform congregations in Israel. So now we have 54 congregations. Some of them are in large cities like Tel Aviv and Jerusalem and Be'er Sheva, and some are in the periphery, in the Upper Galilee, in the Western Galilee, and in the south, in the Arava region, and even in the Gaza envelope. In 2012, we won a historic court case. Vanessa mentioned earlier David's congregation in Kibbutz Gezer. That congregation is very well known because of the Miri Gold case. Anyone heard about it? Yeah, I see you are nodding. So in 2005, we decided to take the state of Israel to court, together with Iraq, the Israel Religious Action Center, which is part of our movement, and the municipality, the regional municipality of Gezer. We fought the state at court, and the mayor of the regional municipality of Gezer said, it can't be that the only non-Orthodox rabbi out of 17 rabbis in the Gezer area is the only one who's not getting salary from the state. Remember, in Israel, there's no separation between religion and state. The state is providing the religious services, is paying for the religious services, but only for Orthodox. So after battling the state for 7 years in court, the Supreme Court said that the state has to provide salary for non-Orthodox rabbis in regional municipalities like Gezer. So we won that case, and that was a precedent that enabled us to open new Reform congregations in regional municipalities. Regional municipalities are serving the rural areas of Israel, the kibbutzim, the moshavim, the periphery. And so we were able to spread out to the periphery. And now out of the 27 new Reform congregations that we were able to establish in the last decade, 13 of them were established in the periphery and in the regional municipalities. And I'm mentioning that specifically because of what happened on October 7th. Because one of the new congregations, one of the first congregations that we established in the periphery was our congregation in Sha'ar HaNegev. This is a congregation in the Gaza envelope, the area surrounding Gaza. The names of the kibbutzim that you hear, Kfar Aza, you said you were there, and Mefalsim, and Nachal Oz, and other kibbutzim that you heard from in the news are the kibbutzim that we're serving. We have a rabbi, a regional rabbi there. Her name is Yael Vorgan. She's amazing. Right now, her congregation is spread throughout the country, and she's serving them. She's driving around the country to meet her congregants. One day she can be in the southern area in Mitzpe Ramon. The other day she can go to Netanya or Tel Aviv and meet her congregants. Some of the kibbutzim have returned, but the majority are still spread around the country, living in other kibbutzim and in hotels. So this is very, very important. We have two other regional congregations in the north, one in the Western Galilee and in the regional municipality called Mate Asher, and another one in Kiryat Shmona. Now, even though there were no Hamas invasion in the north, in the same manner that there was invasion in the south, those populations were evacuated because of the threat from Hezbollah and from the north and because of the rockets. So the rabbis there, and again, the congregation in Kiryat Shmona is relatively new. It's only 3 years old. Our congregation in the Western Galilee is also relatively new. It's only 5 years old. And the rabbis of these congregations who were also evacuated from their homes, and had to move, one of those rabbis had to move 5 times, are serving their congregants, again, driving around the country, conducting a lot of Zoom conversations, conducting funerals, bereavement circles, prayer circles, in order to support their congregants, and in general, the people who were evacuated from different places. We have a humanitarian aid fund called Keren Bechavod, which is specifically designed to react in times of disaster. Usually Keren Bechavod is serving the underprivileged people. And now Keren Bechavod, understanding that they need to work with so many people who were evacuated, almost 200,000 people were evacuated from their homes, actually established a hub in the town of Eilat, which is the most southern town in Israel. About 50,000 people, residents from the south and from the north, were evacuated to Eilat. In the beginning, it was very hard for the state, for the country to respond. So a lot of civil society organizations, our movement included, had to respond immediately. So in the first month, there was no school system. So what we did with Keren Bechavod, we established in Eilat informal education activities. We were able to recruit about 300 volunteers to work with children in Eilat and to make sure that we give material assistance to the families and hold informal education activities for the kids. About a month after the war broke, the government started to be more functional. So they actually took our volunteers and hired them in paid positions in order for them to continue and perform some of the work. Some of our families in our congregations are families of people who are now held hostage in Gaza. One of them is Keith Siegel. His wife. Keith was the hostage, was abducted, and his brother Lee Siegel is one of the leaders of our congregation in Gaza. Keith's wife Aviva has returned. Keith is still being held hostage. A cousin of the executive director of our congregation in Jerusalem, Kol HaNeshama, is also being held hostage. She's a soldier. She was a soldier overseeing, like she saw the attacks. She's one of the 20 women soldiers that were abducted from the army base of Nahal Oz. She was the one who was looking at the cameras as the Hamas terrorists went in. She's still being held hostage. Her name is Karina Arayev. So understanding how this touches us very, very personally. People from Kibbutz Kfar Aza, people from Kibbutz Nahal Oz, who were abducted were people that we knew because they were participating in our events, in our congregational events. So one of the things that we're doing is advocating for the release of the hostages. Very shortly, we wrote special prayers, and now every Motzei Shabbat, we conduct Havdalah at Hostage Square. I don't know if any of you, I know Vanessa went to Israel since October 7th. So were you in Hostage Square?
Yeah, I was in Hostage Square, and I'm happy to show my pictures, and I have a blog which I can send out to everybody. But it's very emotional. There's families sitting in there. They have a long table. I'm sure you've seen that. And half of it is it's set beautifully for Shabbat, for the hostages who are home, and the other half for the hostages who are still being held in Gaza. And people come and tell their stories. When I was there, it was mainly in English because there was a crowd of English-speaking tourists. And there are more and more missions going to Israel. Jewish United Fund is taking one in May and June. And if you want more information about that, see me.
Well, thank you. So every Motzei Shabbat, we hold a prayer circle and Havdalah at the Hosted Square. And we get hundreds of participants to our Havdalah. We call it the Bet Knesset, the synagogue of the street. People who really see themselves as secular feel the need for prayer and for comfort. So they come together to our Havdalah, and we always show it on our Facebook page. So it's usually around noontime here in Chicago. If you want to watch our Havdalah, you can do that. We also hold Kabbalat Shabbat in Jerusalem. Usually it's earlier, it's before Shabbat starts. There's a big tent, again, of the hostage families in Jerusalem as well, not far from the Prime Minister's house, and we hold Kabbalat Shabbat there as well. We now understand that we also have a role in rebuilding Israeli society as we're thinking about the day after. We kept thinking that the day after will be much earlier, right? Who knew that this is going to last for more than 6 months now? People are being held hostage 6 months. We're still in a war. Displaced people can't go back to their homes. So we now see that even if the day after is still not here, we need to do something about it. One of the things that was very important for us is to really convey the message that we're in this together, Israeli citizens, Jews and Arabs. In the beginning, there was a lot of suspicion between Jews and Israeli Arabs. People, Jewish people felt uncomfortable. And we said to ourselves, this is not right. We need to promote shared society values and coexistence. Not only because there are also Arabs, Bedouins who were abducted, but because we're in this together. And the Arab society, they did not, in Israel, there are 20% of the Israeli society, they did not, they were also condemning the attack of the Hamas. So once we saw that there was incitement, we said, this is not the time. We immediately issued a statement about it. And we have a special program called Shchenim, meeting neighbors, where we're promoting encounters between families in our congregations and families in Arab towns, or if it's a mixed city, then between Arab families and Jewish families. And this has been really meaningful and successful. We're now in the month of Ramadan. It's actually ending, I think, this week. And it was also the holiday of Purim during the Ramadan. So on the day of the fast of Esther, which was also the fast of Ramadan, we held a special conference together promoting shared society. That was in the Leo Beck Education Center in Haifa. This is one of our reform schools in Israel that also has Arab students and Jewish students, and they're promoting shared society. And we had participants, Druze, Christians, Muslim, and of course, people from our communities. Jews, we had an interfaith prayer together. It was very meaningful. And we said to our congregations that we're gonna even help them if they wanna do some shared society activities together. That's one thing. The other thing that is very important to us is to promote Jewish diaspora dialogue. We know that this is not easy, that October 7th change the reality for you as well. Not just for us as in Israel. It's the conversation about Israel. It's anti-Semitism. It's about being Jewish. So we feel that, and there's a lot of awareness in Israel on what's going on outside of Israel and how the Jewish community is coping with what's going on in the diaspora. So we have a special program called Domim, Alike, where we promote congregation to congregation, Israeli congregations, North American congregations, congregation to congregation dialogue, offering Zoom programs. We're going to have a special event on Zoom on Yom Ha'atzmaut between our congregations, our movement, and people from outside of Israel. We have a special program with some of the congregations. One of the, I don't know if you heard about the neighborhood. It's an online community of a synagogue in New York, Central Synagogue. So we have ongoing conversations with them as well. And the other thing that is very important for us, as I mentioned, the fact that we're spreading out and that we want to continue growing our movement is to even more so invest in the Israeli periphery. So once the displaced people from the south will go back to the Gaza, to the western Negev region, not far from the Gaza border, we're going to establish another congregation in the Shkol region. And we know that this is going to be a major investment for our movement. David, do you want to add something before maybe we open it up for questions?
I want to hear the questions because it's really important to us to dialogue and to hear. I'll just say that our movement, with all that we've done in the last decade and doubling our size and becoming more and more stronger in Israel, we're small, but since the war began, if there's such a thing that you can say in English of punching above your weight, that's what we've done. We've done the things we do. There's never been a more important time for you would call it pastoral, rabbinic, music. Your candor is sitting here, and I'm going to leave them with some of our materials that our congregations have been using. It's a time when the importance of pluralistic Judaism and the models that we built over the last 10 years or longer have just proven themselves in terms of how important they are. At the very end, I'll add something. After we take questions and answers, I'll add a little bit about how you can find out more and maybe engage with us. But I really want to add my thanks to I'm sure that all of you have found different ways to connect with Israel and to be involved and help. I know this congregation has, so I want to thank you for that. But we'd love to hear questions about what you're curious about with what's going on with Israel, especially how it relates to how it's hitting you. Okay?
Thank you. Yes, should I give the mic?
That's so that people on Zoom can hear the question.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, who has a question? What?
Really quick, going back to what you were saying about marriage. Currently, reform marriages are still not recognized.
Yeah.
So my question has to do with Cyprus. Are people still having to go, couples still having to go to Cyprus to become certified?
Well, it evolved a little bit. Basically, if you want to be registered as a married couple, you need to go outside of Israel, either to Cyprus or to the United States, or maybe have this, apparently the Utah weddings are now recognized by the court in Israel. So actually, we had several couples that were married in the Utah marriage
Zoom.
over
Okay.
Zoom. And
There's
that was-
one Reform rabbi in all, there's one Reform rabbi in all of Utah, I think, in Salt Lake City, and he does all these marriages in Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Because Israel must recognize marriages done by another country,
Country.
state.
but there's another solution, and actually, there are people who just choose not to go outside of Israel at all. Because the funny part, if someone gets married in a civil marriage outside of Israel and they're registered by the Ministry of Interior Affairs, how, if they at some point want to separate and get a divorce, how would they do that? There are no civil divorce in Israel. So they actually have to go back to the Rabbanut. So to the Orthodox rabbinate and go through this ceremony. So now what our movement is saying, you can just be recognized as significant others and
Common law, sort of like
yeah.
common law. marriage.
So just go to a lawyer and sign on an agreement, and you'll get all the rights that you need. And you still get your wedding, your Jewish wedding, through the Reform movement or through another non-Orthodox rabbi, whether it's a conservative rabbi or someone else. And the young couples realize that. Also, if a gay couple wants to get married, they can't get married by the Rabbanut. They also have to either draw this agreement through a lawyer or get married through the Utah arrangement or have civil marriage outside of Israel. The one thing that is recognized by, again, thanks to the Supreme Court, by the state of Israel is conversion. The Reform conversions that are performed outside of Israel for years now are recognized by the state of Israel, and whoever went through a Reform conversion is eligible to make Aliyah to become an Israeli citizen, but also Reform conversions inside Israel. That's thanks to the work of the Israel Religious Action Center. These conversions, Reform and conservative conversions, are recognized. So
Conversion done in the States is recognized.
Yes, yes.
yes,
That, and by the way, that's been recognized for decades.
yeah, for like 20.
But that's something that, the IMPJ is has an eye on because, the ultra Orthodox would love to take that away and have, I think, an
One-
inordinate amount of power in us, but that's, support.
So what is your relationship with the URJ?
We're partners. We're not, we're an independent movement, but I can say that many of the founders of the Israel Reform movement are rabbis and leaders that made Aliyah during the 50s and 60s, and they are the pioneers. They are the ones who established Reform Judaism in Israel, but it's a completely separate movement. I can say that ARTSA, the Association of Reform Zionists of America, who is a part of the Union for Reform Judaism, is supporting our movement through their membership dues. And also, the URJ and ARTSA are promoting voting in the World Zionist Congress elections. that might seem far away, that's in a year or so, but this is very important for our movement because not only this is the way for the pluralistic movement to get seats and effect on what's going on in Israel, but it's also through that political power, we're getting some funding from the World Zionist Congress that helps building our movement.
I want to add, just on this last point, and I saw Vanessa nodding her head when Anna mentioned the elections to the WZO. It's hard to bring it home here, but it's so important. When I was introduced, it was mentioned I'm on the executive of the WZO. I'm your representative. I'm the representative of Reformed Jewry all over the world in this organization that includes ultra-Orthodox all the way to the far left Zionist movements. And we're in there and we impact the policies outside of Israel and also to some extent in Israel. Therefore, I hope that this is a congregation that when that comes around will help because and that's been one of the things that helped us grow in Israel very much so.
We have a proud record of, I don't want to say 100%, but we have a very high voting. And when the time comes around,
Very good.
not to worry, I'll remind you.
So okay.
Great.
Thank you for interesting discussion. I'm a little confused. I kept solicitations from the conservative movement in that funding, with the strength of that group is compared to yours. And I had a personal experience when I was in Israel. My sister was there, and when my sister challenged her a little bit, she went in and she put out some film in the prayer service. and they all
At the conservative congregation?
The conservative one. And they can stop her, but they give her kind of
Interesting.
disparaging votes.
It's something it depends.
Well, first of all, we cooperate on many of the political issues. We are cooperating, but we are a separate movement. I'll give you an example. Right up until October 7th, there was the pro-democracy protest. Our movement, I just mentioned some of our historic court cases. Thanks to the Israeli support of the Supreme Court, our movement was able to overcome barriers and grow, even though there was and there is still so much discrimination. So once the Israeli government decided to go with a legal coup, our movement said, we're going to join the protest. And it wasn't an easy decision. It's never an easy decision for a civil society organization that is nonpartisan. We're saying we're political, but nonpartisan, to say that we're going to demonstrate against the Israeli government. But we did that because we knew how important, democracy is for our movement. For the first time, right before the war, we were asked by 16 municipalities to hold egalitarian Simchat Torah circles.
Processions.
Yeah, Torah, dancing with the Torah sessions, egalitarian in the public sphere. Usually you do it in two separate circles, just Orthodox. And they're asking Chabad to do that. For the first time, because we were so visible in the pro-democracy protest, and because it was so much about religion and state, we were approached to do that. The conservative movement had their own inner debates, so they never joined the pro-democracy protest. And this is just one example how we're different. And of course, we're cooperating. I think that the court cases that Iraq was part of the Israeli reform movement won. The conservative movement benefited from them as well. Their conversions are recognized as much as our conversions are recognized. Their non-Orthodox rabbis in regional municipalities are recognized as much as our rabbis are recognized and getting funding from the state. You wanted, there was a question.
Could you further explain about the egalitarian services and events you've been talking about? Is it between the reform and the working together, or?
It's between men and women.
Oh.
Between men and women, so
Yeah.
that even with the Orthodox, so I'm really unclear.
Well, no, the Orthodox usually have, I mean, there are maybe in Jerusalem, very few Orthodox minyanim where they have egalitarian halachic Orthodox services. That's a decision based on a congregational, like, if a congregation is more liberal, is Orthodox and more liberal, they can decide that they want to hold egalitarian services. When I'm talking about egalitarian Judaism, I'm talking about liberal Judaism, about equality between men and women, that women can become rabbis, can read from the Torah. All the things that you here are taking for granted are not to be taken for granted in Israel. Even a bar and bat mitzvah. So you can have in the same family a mother that says, I don't want to be separated from my son when he's doing an Aliyah Torah and reading from the Torah. So we'll go to a reform shul and they come to our shuls. That's how sometimes people even join our congregations after they go through a meaningful ritual. But not always the mother is thinking about the girl. Here, girls and boys are having b'nei mitzvah, it's the same. You even call it bi mitzvah because you don't want to like make it based on gender. In Israel, it's mostly bar mitzvah for the boys. If a girl wants to do an Aliyah Torah and read from the Torah as a bat mitzvah, she's considered, you know, out of the ordinary. I had to convince my daughter, so I have two daughters, they're now 25, 22. When we came back to Israel from our shlichut, my oldest daughter, Noya, she was almost bat mitzvah. And because she went to a liberal Jewish day school in Brooklyn, it was very, very natural to her to do bat mitzvah. Of course, she was the only one in her class, but she invited her classmates to see how she's reading from the Torah like all the other boys. Her younger sister, 3 years later, when it was time for her to do a bat mitzvah, she was ashamed because no one in her class did that. And she said to me, do I have to do that? And I said, you don't have to do that, but it's a gift from our family to yours.
She's
So-
a tough mother.
Yeah. And she was empowered. It was amazing for her. I'm giving this as an example, just to show how Israel is different, how the culture is different, and how it takes generations to make this shift, and how our movement is working to make this shift. We have about 51% of our rabbis are women, and they serve congregations. There are cases when a couple could ask for an egalitarian wedding, but they want a man to perform it. Why? Because they don't want to annoy the grandfather. It's easier. You want to ask any questions. So I think that it's a statement, especially in Israel, for a woman to put on a talit, to say, I'm equal, to say, I have as much part in the Torah as a man, so.
I know we don't have a lot of time left, but I would love for you to talk a little bit about what's happening in the north with Hezbollah and calling up people, and I know you don't have a crystal ball, but if you did, yeah, tell us what's happening.
So there's a lot of, while there are still troops in Gaza, and there's still hostages being held in Gaza, the people who were displaced from the towns and the cities and the kibbutzim in the north are not able to go back to their homes yet, because there are rockets that are being fired every day towards those towns and cities in Israel. So it's not safe for them to come back. There's a lot of tension. We're trying to avoid another front and another war, but we don't know what's going to happen because every time there's another rocket or this how do you say katbam, this airplane,
Unmanned, drone.
a drone that is being flown, and the Iranians are pulling the strings of Hezbollah that are doing that. And so every time Israel has to respond, but not too harshly, because we don't want to start a war, but because it's very, very hard to fight a war on two fronts, but we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, it can be, I think that now there are still about 30 consulates around the world that are still closed because we're afraid that there will be an Iranian response to the killing of one of the senior people from, how do you say, Mishmarot HaMahapecha?
From the Revolutionary Guards of Iran.
Right. Last week, we were able to, how do you say, assassinate one of the senior people of those guards. So there's a lot of tension there, and so while there are reserves and soldiers being called to the front in the south in Gaza, there are also soldiers being called to the front in the north. We never experience that kind of a conflict for such a long time. It's hard.
I understand from you that we need to close, so.
But I assume you can stay after.
Yeah,
I just want to say three things and then read something to you. The first thing is, you heard a lot about us in a short time, including what we are without the war. And the truth is, our movement is doing incredible things before the war and during the war, and we're praying that things will be better after the war with all of you, that the war will end, and that I don't think there's anyone, whatever our opinions are, that doesn't want peace. For those of you who'd like to hear from us, there's a sheet here that maybe Vanessa can put around, that if you'd like to sign up for our newsletter and get information about the weekly, we put out a weekly newsletter. We also send lots of materials out to clergy and to congregations. And if anyone would like to just put your name and email, and afterwards, by the way, we really do respect people's privacy. And if they afterwards write down that they want to leave, they leave. If there are people in the group who would like to support what we do, there's also another piece of paper around with information how to do that. And of course, we'd appreciate that. And I want to close at least the formal part of this. Oh, one request, that after we finish the formal part, we'd appreciate it if we could take a picture with all of you.
If you don't mind.
If you don't mind, okay? Anyone who doesn't. But I want to read you something special. Anna talked about the incredible work that our young Israeli trained rabbis and cantors and clergy have heroically done since October 7th, way more than just incredible work. And some of our rabbis have written incredible original prayers in Hebrew that we translated. And so there's a prayer about the captives that I want to read you to end this talk with. And sorry, I need to put on my glasses for this. This was written by Rabbi Oded Mazor, a young Israeli rabbi who serves our congregation in Jerusalem called Kol Neshama. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, men, women, and young children, and all those held in painful captivity and danger. May it be your will, Shekhinah, source of life, to rescue them, to redeem their souls, and return them swiftly to their homes. May the words of the prophet come true as it is written. Thus said God, a cry is heard in Ramah, wailing, bitter weeping, Rachel weeping for her children. She refuses to be comforted for her children who are gone. Thus said God, restrain your voice from weeping, your eyes from shedding tears. For there is a reward for your labor, declares God. They shall return from the enemy's land. Amen. Amen. And
Thank you so much.
the materials that we have